Okay, I was on this page today. I'm just looking through Facebook page, and I saw this thing posted yesterday. And this person was asking, this is John Price, asking, could somebody shed some light on how to create shadows for product photos? I have Affinity Designer, can't seem to find videos on how to do this. So I thought it's probably a good spot to start doing something. I took this image and then I used a program called remove.bg to cut this out and then kind of tweak to get a visual similar to this, but had the object cut out so I could work with it. Okay, so let me show you what the workflow is. So I have this cut out, as you see, and my very poor connection of my wood here, but I think it will help with the purpose of recreating the challenge that we're looking at. So first of all, two things that are important when you're creating an object. Now, I do this in 3D modeling where it's simple in that you put a light in the scene and the light naturally bounces off objects and it creates shadows, etc. And there's things called ambient occlusion, which is when two things are close together, they form sort of a dark shadow. So the key here is to create a ambient occlusion or a occlusion close to the object, which will make the object cement to at this point, a piece of wood. And then we need to, in the real world, there's a light coming from somewhere and there's shadow happening. Now, I am doing this just to help understand how to get to the point. I'm not going to refine the process too much, so the shapes that I'm using are a bit out of sorts, specifically the shadow of the object itself. I'm going to just use rough shapes, but just to get the concept going. So the first one we want to do is put down a shadow at the bottom, and one good tool for that would just be the ellipse tool, and then we draw an ellipse like this. Okay, and let me show you how that's going to work. So we take that and we place it to the base. Now, because it's a separate layer, we need to get this one to the back. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I will just pop this to the back, and if we look at that now, we can see that the black ellipse is towards the back area. It's being occluded by this cutout object that we have. Okay, so there we have it, but that doesn't really look realistic. So the key here is not to make it too obvious. Now I'm going to just, on this cup, I'm going to lock this layer here, because if I want to move the thing at the bottom, this is always going to grab first. So if I go now, you'll see that it's able to grab because I've locked this layer with a cup on. So in this case here, we want to get it kind of just about in the bottom area. And yeah, and sometimes what I do is I'll take it and I'll move the arrow button down just to navigate to it. And then on the sides, you can keep the control button down and it will pull it equally on both sides. So you kind of get it to, an area that looks sort of what we're talking at. So that's the kind of thing, but it's still very harsh there. I mean, you never get a shadow that harsh. So what we're going to do is we're going to go get on the layer, and the layer effects, we're going to go to Gaussian blur. Okay, and you can play around with this. If you shift it up, just look what happens here at the bottom. And you see it goes even to a fade. You really can't see it that much afterwards, but you're wanting it to be sort of in that space, not too blurred and not too dark. This is pretty much just kind of softening it up. Say I get it to 2.4 pixels with that, just a guesstimate there, and then I go to the opacity of this layer, and when I pull it down, you can create a kind of realistic contact point there. Now if I switch this off, you will see the difference. Just watch over here at the bottom. If I switch this off, oops, now I'm switching my edit there, I'm switching that off. Can you see? If we take it back here, that's what it looks like. If you drop that shadow in, you're adding a bit of contact area there. Now you can modify, but don't try and add too much or pull the shadow too far down, because then it's going to look like the cup is hovering over the thing instead of being on it. So remember what I said, it's ambient occlusion. It creates this dark shadow the closer it gets to the object. So hopefully that looks a bit better, but now we want to create a shadow indicating where the light's coming from. So here's where I'm going to get really rough and dirty. I'm going to just do an area like this, which is going to represent this here. And then I'm going to convert to curves because I want to be able to work with a node tool. If I go on here with the node tool, I could probably take one of these nodes and pull them accordingly. So I'm going to create this artificial cup. Now you could go, I've got a video on my channel where I show you how to create silhouettes out of objects. You could go and do that, but this is just a rough process giving you concept. Okay, so now I'm going back to the selection tool and I'm going to put it there, and I'm going to now maybe just make it a little bit thinner just to represent the cup here. And on top I want to go a bit broader, but I'm going to have to select nodes there. Let's see what we get with that. Yeah, and maybe select the nodes. I'm going to try the control here. I forgot how this works. No, it won't work with control to split them out sideways. Just click one at a time. So I'm going to create this little cup. I know this is unnecessary me doing this, but you get the idea. Okay, now the shape is not too crucial. It's going to be Gaussian. It's going to have a Gaussian blur, and it's going to be faded out quite a bit. So this, now we're going to move to the back of this cup because that's where the shadow is going to be. Let's assume that the light is coming from the right to the left. And you could have that if the light is falling here, it's still going to hit flat on the surface and kind of fold up this way. I'm not sure if I'm going to still do all of that. Concept here, guys. We're working on concept. So let me move this to the back. So there we have it there. So now if you hover over the top middle button, you'll see there's a shear button. I think is a shear button. So you can do things like this. So we're going to just shear that as if we're having the light going to fall on the side. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go again and to the effects layer and add a Gaussian blur. And in this time I could probably be a bit more aggressive than what we did at the bottom of the area, but you see what's starting to happen. It's starting to really kind of go for a loop. So if we have something like that, and then I'm going to go to the opacity of this layer here and pull that down. So we're having a slight, maybe I'm going to drop have a shadow is going to be a little bit more sharper than that. That's maybe, yeah, that would be a more realistic kind of shadow. So now I've faded it out, but you probably could get away with that, but it seems to be too strong this way. So what one could suggest is go to the node tool, drop in a node here and drop in a node here, probably about there. And here this guy's, it's fiddling around with what's best. Then I select both of them and just pull them both down. Oops. Wow. It's late at night while I'm doing this. So we grab both of them and we kind of create a little, where the shadow's going to there. Let's just create this as a single one, probably there. Okay, so there you're creating a bit of a realism that it's a bit flat here and then it's hitting up against the wall. And of course you can tweak it accordingly. You can maybe drop the transparency a bit, maybe if the light is and there we're getting it. Again, this light, you can do various things where you could make it even a bit of a gradient in that it's darker towards the one side and lighter to the other. But yeah, I think that's, maybe we could take these two and just bring them a bit closer. Okay, so the whole key is what you're trying to do is emulate if a light's coming from the side, the shadow is going to fall there and up. So the key two things is your Gaussian blur and then your transparency. Okay, so if we take these two away now, we take the contact area at the bottom, you see there's nothing over there. Your eye will pick that up if we drop it in there again. Adds a bit of contact, and if we take the shadow away, where's the shadow? Then we have nothing there. So if you have this set up, that's going to add a little bit more of realism. And then of course, if the light is coming from a different area, you could move it accordingly. But this is how you create shadows, or the way I do it as such. The other thing that I can mention is there's a program called Photo Room. Yeah, it's Photo Room. It's a subscription service. It's got brilliant cutout. It cuts out things and places objects with kind of shadows in the space. That does a nice job for product shots. Yep, so hopefully this helps somebody, or it helps the person in the Facebook page and other people along the way. Have a fantastic day and shalom.